Hi, I'm Gannon Friend, and welcome to the Conspiracy Theorists podcast.
Good evening and welcome to WJHS's one and only Theory Podcast. This week, like we promised last week, we're going to be going over theories about history. So to kick us off, I just recently saw this theory about how every nation, like every great nation, before they fell or collapsed or whatever you want to say, actually was started focusing on the same things that United States is focusing on right now. Like, they started funding other countries and other wars and really getting involved with all of that. They started focusing on the family aspect and deconstructing the current family, and then also started focusing on making people feel good rather than ruling. Like Rome, for example, before they collapsed, it was huge war tactic nation, everything was about conquering and conquest. But then before they started collapsing, they started focusing on what their citizens would feel good about rather than actually conquering as a nation. And then that was just a few years before they started. So that happened a few other times. So I guess the theory is that if history is going to repeat itself, essentially the United States is coming up on its collapse.
I think that theory is pretty interesting. I think that part of the reason that history is taught is so we don't repeat the past. And so maybe this is an actual example of that being put into play.
Do you think the United States is actually going to end soon?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so
I wouldn't
either.
say so either.
Why not?
I don't know how it would end, bro.
Well, I mean, think about all of the rising enemies. China and Russia made a deal making the first ever 2 million man army in history. So those are United States' two main enemies. How do you think we would hold against that?
I don't know. Other allies?
The three trumpets will save us.
That's what I was
Hopefully,
thinking.
man,
That was
I'm
the
hoping.
rapture, bro.
Yeah. So what do you think we could do at this point? Because obviously we're already doing these things, and they're not necessarily bad things, making people feel good and stuff. But what do you think we can do at this point to ensure, as a nation, we don't repeat history?
I don't think people really care.
Yeah, and I think if we're thinking about older Rome and how they were powerful, I feel they didn't have much knowledge, when they were doing these things. I feel we do some things with purpose now. I'm specifically talking about funding some other countries during war times, but I don't think we're setting ourselves up for failure. I definitely feel the decisions, I don't know much, but I feel the decisions the other countries were making a long time ago were setting them up for failure, I guess. I don't know much, but I just feel United States is doing the right things, I guess. I don't think they're doing the right things citizen-wise, chase your dreams, be yourself, be true to yourself. I'm not talking about that, but I think with the financial decisions we're making, again, I don't know much, but I don't think we're gonna make the same mistakes that these old time countries do.
And even though we make a lot of mistakes, I do think that we are still more level-headed in the United States than a lot of other countries. We don't set off missiles like North Korea does, or we don't really seek war. We just try to help our allies.
I just don't think the people, the citizens of the U.S. really care. Because if you see videos all the time of people on the streets, not just governments, right? Just the citizens of the U.S., people on the street, they ask them questions who was the first president? They can't answer that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Justin, where it's at this point in our nation, patriotism is kind of dying. And just the amount of people who are say stuff I hate America, the kind of increase in that, I think would absolutely speak to the fact I think personally United States is the greatest nation in the world, but I don't think that comes from a point of them being the most powerful or them being the most concrete, because quite honestly I can see the United States ending soon. I think that the odds are kind of stacking up against us, and the United States isn't really doing much against that. But Justin, you're saying, I don't really think anyone cares about it all that much anymore.
And I recently watched a movie that kind of fits this. It was called Don't Look Up, and the movie was basically making fun of the government the whole time, because a meteor was going to hit the earth, but instead of destroying it, they wanted to farm it for the rich materials, which I feel especially with the people of the United States, it's always want. It's never just fine with what you have, at least for most people. I don't personally feel I'm that way, but for a lot of people it's want. It's we gotta at some point be fine with what we have and not have to push for more money or fame. I just think people always want, and we can't always provide, and gains. So that just creates like a really greedy society, I think, and like needy.
I feel like it also would be a factor of who our leader is of the U.S.
Yeah, I think it's important that we focus more on ourselves than we do on other places. I think that's a problem that we have.
All right, well, great talk, boys. Thanks for all the great discussion. And to you, our listeners, thank you for listening. That was our full discussion today over historical theories and how they compare to now. Make sure you tune in next week. We're going to be going over 2 different theories. Number 1, is the Earth flat? And number 2, was the moon landing really real? Make sure you tune in. This is WJHS Conspiracy Theories.